The following is a presentation of the Eagles Sports Network.
Hi again, everybody, and welcome into episode 11 of Mossy Creek Conversations. I'm your host, Michael Watring, pleased to be joined today by a Carson-Newman women's soccer legend, Julie Nelson. Julie, appreciate you taking some time with us today.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Let's start way back in the day. You grew up in Larne, Northern Ireland. How would you describe your hometown?
It's small, beside the sea. I like it. And I grew up beside some, what you would call soccer fields, some football pitches, as we would call them. And that's kind of where my first love for soccer or football came from.
I feel like sports has changed drastically in the last really 10 years even, just in terms of how specialized it has become. But women's sports have been given a lot more opportunities. There's been a lot more funding in terms of women's sports. When you were growing up, what was the structure like playing soccer?
There wasn't really any structure for women here in Northern Ireland. I know obviously they were a little bit more advanced in the US than we were here, but I just played with the other kids in the street where I lived on those football pitches beside my house. And then the first kind of experience I had of playing in a team was in my primary school. So I joined the boys team there because there were no girls teams at all to play for. And that's kind of my first experiences of playing. And then a women's team was set up in my local town of Larne. I think I was about 13 or so whenever that team, or 12 perhaps, whenever the team started up, and that was kind of groundbreaking at that stage because there was nothing like that before.
I think I watched a video interview that you did a couple of years ago, and you mentioned the fact that you were discovered for women's soccer. I think just playing in a park. What was that experience like once you learned the fact that now you would have an opportunity to play on a girls' team rather than having to compete with the guys?
Yeah, it was fantastic. As you said, I was just playing out on the street with a couple of the other girls that lived there, and a coach came along and spotted us and asked if we wanted to come along, to try out for the team. And, obviously it was an eye-opening experience at that time to know that obviously there was even a women's team in the town, because we didn't know that at the time. And then to get the opportunity to go and train with them and then develop from there. We started off as a 7-a-side team, and then it built into a full 11-a-side team. And then we entered the league after a couple of years.
You started playing goalkeeper for those girls' teams. I think you said that you played during halftime of a men's game for the first time. How did your experiences as a goalkeeper kind of help kickstart the rest of your career?
Yeah, I don't really know how I ended up in goals, to be honest, at the start. Maybe I was a little bit crazy when I was younger, I don't know. But I started off as a goalkeeper in my primary school team and with the girls' team. And I played in goal for probably the first 4 or 5 years, although I always had ambitions to play out. I kind of got bored whenever I was playing in goal, and I wanted to go and play out. And the experience you're talking about, we played as an exhibition at halftime when our national men's team were playing. And the video clip, my dad actually has it in the house. I played half the game in goal and then came out of the goal and made somebody else go in because I wanted to come out and run around, run like everybody else got to do. So
when you get the opportunity to start playing soccer, were there any sports in mind? Did you want to play anything else? Why was soccer something that captured your passion?
Yeah, I played a range of sports actually when I was a kid growing up. My first sport I played was rugby because that was my dad's sport, and he coached rugby, so that was the first sport I played. And then at school I also played field hockey. Field hockey actually would have been my main sport whenever I was younger, and soccer kind of came after the field hockey, and then I was able to balance the two as I went through my high school years. And then only laterally, probably after I went to Carson-Newman, that's when football became, my prime sport after that.
What was the decision like for you to continue your playing career in the United States?
It kind of came out of the blue. It wasn't really something I'd ever considered. One of the girls from the team at home I went to school with, she actually had gone on scholarship as soon as we finished high school, and I actually went to university in London for the first year. And I didn't enjoy it at all, and had planned to come back home and study in Northern Ireland. And then Coach McNamara was back home. He's from Northern Ireland, and had asked around for some recommendations of players to play centre back, which is my position. And so I got chatting to him, and it kind of escalated from there, really. And initially I was only supposed to go to Carson-Newman for one semester, just kind of as a year out for me. And obviously I loved it that much. I ended up staying for 3.5 years.
What were your first impressions of the United States?
Well, I had been before with my team. We had gone on a tour one year, so I had been to the US before, but obviously not to stay there, not to live there. So you had to go to Jeff City. Larne, as I said, is a small town, and Jeff City is obviously similar in that respect. And I think that helped, instead of, as opposed to going probably to a big D1 school, to go to a smaller college, and everybody was really friendly, and I just really enjoyed it.
So you get to Carson-Newman, you play the 2004 season, ends up being a Final Four campaign for the program. Obviously a program at that time that was really on the rise and starting to see some of the fruits of the labor that they had. What was your freshman season like?
Yeah, it was amazing. As you say, there was... it was groundbreaking and new for the program, and the likes of Claire Ramsdale and Becky and those kind of players, really helped push it on, as well as the US players. Obviously Jenny Bott got inducted into the Hall of Fame last year, and the other players that were there, and it was a great mixture, I think, of probably US players mixed with the international players, and I really, really enjoyed it, hence why I decided to stay on after that freshman season.
What was it like playing with such a different mix of players in terms of nationality? Because you come to the United States, you get opportunities to play with girls from the States, but also I believe from England, Scotland, Norway. There were probably others in that mix as well. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it was great to see the different styles, I suppose, and the different mixture that there was in the squad. The US players, obviously, fitness basically, or athleticism is the big thing, and always is in US soccer, and probably the European side initially more the technical and the tactical side. So it was good to have the combination of both of those within the squad, and I think Phil really helped to integrate everybody. And to get the best out of everyone in that squad. Your
very first year here, 6 different players received all conference honors, including a Player of the Year honor for Rebecca Angus. When you look back at your very first season, how much did that competition drive everybody to become better players?
Yeah, as I said, the quality of the players that we had was really high. And I think within the squad that pushed everybody on, because, you knew your place wasn't guaranteed, and you had to turn up and you had to perform every day in practice and every game that you played as well. And I think that definitely helped to push us on within the conference then as well, because obviously we were used to competition in our own squad, and we were all trying to perform our best.
In your very first season at Carson-Newman, 2004, you get the opportunity to play for your home country, Northern Ireland in Portugal, in the Algarve Cup. What was that experience like, getting to suit up for the home country for the very first time?
Yeah, that was fantastic. Our national team, there hadn't been a senior team from 1999 through to 2004. So luckily I came along at a good time, whenever the team had just been restructured and set up again, and to get the opportunity to go and play in the Algarve Cup was amazing, and to make my debut there. And I played all 4 games in the first year, which was fantastic. And even when we were at the Algarve Cup, the likes of the US and Germany and Sweden and all those types of teams all played in it at that stage as well. So I remember going to watch the US play. I think it was Sweden, but Mia Hamm was playing, and she was kind of the one that everybody knew about back then. She was a big name all across the world, and even to see her play and to be 15, 20 meters away from her, obviously she was on the pitch and we weren't, was fantastic. And we were able to get a picture with her as a squad, after the final game. So it was all a big change for us as Northern Ireland, because as I said, we hadn't even had a team before. And I think even when the team had been there previously, they'd only played the likes of Scotland or the Republic of Ireland, the teams that are really close to where we are in the world. So it was kind of an eye-opening experience for everyone.
Yeah, you mentioned that eye-opening experience. It's no disrespect to colleges or anything like that in this area, because this is highly skilled players here. But to go from what you see in practice every single day to seeing a Mia Hamm, who's one of the greatest players in the history of women's soccer and soccer in general, how do you describe how much that impacted your growth, seeing what the tippy top of the world-class players would be as you got prepared for your next year as a college player?
Yeah, that definitely really helped. You saw, I think it was the USA play Germany as far as I remember. It's obviously a couple of years ago now, but I think that was the final of the Algarve Cup, and to see the standard of those players, Christine Lilly, Abby Wambach were playing at that time as well. And for us as Northern Ireland players, it was like a world away, those players. And obviously then as college players as well, you got to see what the very high standards were like there. And it gave you something to aim towards.
I reached out to Coach Phil McNamara, and 2005 was a second consecutive Final Four season for this team. He said that he thought that team had a legitimate chance to win a national championship, but you injured your ACL that year. What was that experience like for you, knowing how talented of a team that was, and having such a difficult injury that would take so long for you to rehab after that? Yeah,
I actually injured my ACL. I'd come home again to play in the Algarve Cup in 2005, and we had played a friendly against Sweden before the tournament. And unfortunately, I tore my ACL, complete rupture of my ACL. And at that time, for us over here, we weren't really familiar with ACLs. Obviously, it was more of a thing in the US that you heard about. And even when I had gone to the US in 2004, there was a couple of the girls in the team that had done theirs, but as I say, for us over here, wasn't really something that we knew a whole lot about. So that was obviously disappointing at that stage, but I didn't actually find out that my ACL had completely ruptured until one of the trainers at Carson-Newman looked at me whenever I came back. I think it was maybe about the April of 2005, and that's when I got the dreaded news, obviously, that no athlete wants to hear. But because it had happened playing for the national team, then obviously my insurance in the US didn't cover me. So I had to wait till I came home in the May of that year for my summer vacation to get the surgery. So I wasn't able to get my surgery until I think it was the 5th of June or around that anyway, of 2005. And then obviously I knew, I was going to have to miss the whole college season because you were going to be out, for 9 months. So, obviously it was heartbreaking at the time, but, that's something that, a lot of athletes now have to deal with. And I think it's helped to make me the player I am now.
When you look back at those two seasons, those two Final Four seasons that were just fantastic, you won 36 games over the 2 years there, conference championships aplenty during that time. What do you remember most about those two seasons? Not necessarily from the time on the pitch, but just from the time spending around that team and riding that wave of two of the most quality seasons that this program has ever had.
I think just the togetherness really that we had as a group, as we've already discussed, there was such a good blend of US players and players from outside of the US. And I think everybody got on really well. There was no real cliques in the squad, and, everyone kind of got on. There was no real arguments or anything like that. And it was just so enjoyable for everybody, both on and off the field, to be a part of that squad and such a good environment to be in.
Like you said, you only plan to be in the U.S. for potentially a semester. Well, you're getting ready now for your third campaign at Carson-Newman in 2006. And as you mentioned, you're rehabbing an injury that nowadays seems to be pretty standard procedure. Everybody knows how to handle that and can get back fairly quickly. Back then, totally different situation. What was rehab like for you trying to get back to 100%?
Well, that actually worked out well for me that I was in the US. So I had the surgery in June, as I said, and then I went back to the US in August, even though I was going to have the red shirt that season. Obviously, I was still studying. And I had one of the trainers basically was like my personal trainer. my personal therapist, a girl called Mariah Robinson, and she was actually one of the student trainers at that stage. And we basically spent every day, whether it was in the training room or in the gym or out on the pitch, working on all the different phases of the rehab that I had to go through. And my surgeon from here back home had sent through his kind of recommendations based on this type of surgery that he had done. And yeah, I think that really worked in my favor, because I got that individual attention every single day to help me, to come back to be as good as, if not better than I was before.
How was the 2006 season on the pitch for you? You became a first-team all-conference member that year. The team went 17-2-1, regular season and tournament championships. You go to the NCAA tournament as well, play a couple games there. How would you describe getting back onto the pitch, being healthy, and then going through that season in which you collected a couple rings?
Yeah, it was great to be back on the field, as you say, and playing with those girls again. And I actually co-captained the team that year along with Erica Stegner, and it was fantastic to be back on the pitch with those girls and winning, as you say. To get another conference title and a conference tournament title was fantastic. The
conference tournament championship that year, you played Catawba. You needed PKs to win that. Do you remember anything about that match?
I have some pictures of the celebrations after we scored the winning penalty, and we're all just piled on top of each other on the pitch, and I can just remember it was just elation from everybody. Obviously Catawba at that stage were one of our toughest opponents, so it was fantastic to get the win over them, especially in PKs, as you say.
Going into your senior year now, a team that goes 14-6 and goes back to the NCAA tournament as a senior, and another all-conference selection for you, and another all-region campaign as well for you that year. What do you remember most about your senior year? Because, like you mentioned earlier, and as I just mentioned, you only plan on being here a semester, and yet here you are, year 3.5 basically of your time, and you get to wrap up your career in that manner here in the United States. What do you remember about that season?
Not a whole lot, to be honest. It's quite a while ago, but I remember my senior night. One of my good friends who was on the team at the time, Brittany Moore, her parents actually came, for my senior night, because my parents weren't there, obviously. So I remember that. And there's not really a whole lot else that I remember. I remember from that season, to be honest.
That's completely fair. I totally understand that. So I reached out to your former coach, Phil McNamara, who's currently at UT Martin, and he gave me a couple little things here to talk about with you. And the first thing that he mentioned was that you always sat on the back of the bus and you were the team DJ. How did that even come about?
I have no idea how I ended up the team DJ. But yeah, I think they liked obviously the mixture of songs, because I'm bringing some European music across, which they probably haven't heard of. And then obviously they have their favorite US songs as well. So I have no idea really how I ended up as the team DJ, but I seem to do okay, because I managed to keep that role for the rest of my college career whenever I went there. And the girls all love to sing song on the bus. Obviously there's long road trips to go on for some of the games that you're playing. Wingate for talk 5 hours away. So we had great times on the bus singing. Yeah.
Do you remember any of your favorite songs from that time?
We actually still have we had CDs made. That's how old we are. So we all had CDs made of our playlist. And I found my old iPod there over the summer. Actually, during lockdown, I found it in my parents' house. And I have the playlist still on there. So it's fantastic to play that again, because it brings back so many memories.
I guess some of the other antics that came about that, at least this is one of the things that Coach McNamara remembered, is he said that you guys would argue who was the quickest, and you would often race. And he said that there was a team dinner at his house one year and that you raced in the dark. Can you recall that for me and give me kind of a play-by-play of how that came about?
Yeah, I can't remember where the discussion started from, but we're having an argument anyway, as I said, about who was the quickest, and then we ended up on the street outside his house having a race in the dark to see who was the quickest. I do remember that. As I say, I don't remember where that came from, but it all started off that I think they were keeping going that I was slow or something, maybe, I don't know. Because I take big long strides, when I run, so sometimes I look slow, so I don't know whether it was to do with that. I can't remember, but
still a fun time, I'm sure, to recall that back in the day. So to kind of sum up your career at Carson-Newman, like I mentioned, 60 starts in your career. That's top 10 in Carson-Newman history. You were the 2014 SAC Tournament MVP as well. It was a great time for soccer at Carson-Newman because not only were your teams playing extremely well, but the men's teams were fantastic. They won 3 regular season conference championships. They went to the Elite Eight in 2005, the same year that you guys went to a Final Four. Was there any kind of friendly competition there between the men and the women to try to see which team could provide more wins during the year?
I don't think there was much competition. There was good what we would call banter over here between the two squads, and there was really, close friendships between the squads as well. The men's team had a great mixture of different nationalities on their team, and everybody got on so well, both on and not on the pitch, but off the pitch. And both teams supported each other as well. I remember, if the guys were playing, we would have stayed, to watch them, and vice versa. And I think that probably helped to push both squads on, to know that each other was there supporting the other squads.
How much did Carson-Newman end up meaning to you, your career, your life? Because you spent 3.5 years here, and those were very formidable years for you getting ready for a professional career. How much did Carson-Newman mean to you?
Yeah, it was fantastic. As most of the girls that I met there, I'm still really close with quite a few of the girls, and from all over the world, as you said. There's Australia, America, obviously, Norway. Actually, 2 of the English girls have moved to Norway now as well. So a few of us have caught up since being at college. There's been a few reunions, and we were actually just chatting there a couple of weeks ago about hopefully whenever all the COVID restrictions are over, that we can have another, reunion somewhere again. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time at Carson-Newman, and would definitely recommend it to anybody that was going to the US. It's sometimes better to go to a smaller college, as I said, than to go to a big D1 school where you'll get lost or you just become a number.
When you get the opportunity to play for Northern Ireland in 2004, I'm sure maybe a little bit of your mind started to think, maybe I can do this professionally. But when was the first time during your college career that you really believed that you had an opportunity to make maybe not what you've become, because I think maybe it's hard to imagine that maybe back in 2004 that you would be able to play professionally for over a decade and you would be the most capped player in Northern Ireland history. But when was the first time you really thought, hey, I got a shot when I leave college to play for a few good years after this?
I think actually there was a couple of the girls, as I said, moved to Norway and they got the opportunity to play there. I think at that stage it was semi-professional. Obviously women's soccer's moved on quite a lot since even then, but and you know, I kind of thought, well, yeah, I can go back home and play and there's no obstacle, but that's still amateur. But it was kind of eye-opening to see that there were opportunities there for people to go and play soccer, either semi-professionally or, professionally. And, it gave me a bit of an appetite to maybe that was something that I would like to try.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit about the fact that it was a little bit amateur, semi-pro back then. What's been the biggest difference from the start of your professional career back in 2007, 2008 to where women's pro soccer has transformed into here now in the year 2021?
Oh, I think there's so many differences. The standard of play, the strength and the athleticism of the players, the structures that are in place, the support that it gets from the media as well. And there is a fan base there for women's soccer throughout the world now, which previously there may have been, pockets here and there, but there wasn't a world base. And now I think with the exposure that women's soccer's got, and obviously people are watching the product that it's producing and enjoying it. I think it's night and day from whenever I started playing to where it is now. And, I wish I was probably 15 or 20 years younger than unfortunately I am.
But still, you've had a phenomenal career, and one of the things that you've been able to do is pass that along to some of these younger players out there that have started things. What would your advice be to the younger generation now? Because obviously, when you first started, it was not a, hey, I'm going to make a lot of money and I'm going to be able to do this all the time and this is going to be a lot of fun for me. It was very much just a passion project at the very beginning for you. How would you give advice to the younger players now as they get prepared to rise the ranks?
Yeah, I think it's important not to lose sight of why you play the game. Thankfully, so far anyway, well, definitely in Northern Ireland, women's players don't play the game for money. And as long as it stays like that, I think they won't lose sight of why they play soccer. And it's, first and foremost for me anyway, and hopefully for all the kids that play, it's for the enjoyment of it, and the team camaraderie that you have. And, I'm fortunate I get to coach some of our young players that are coming through the national team pathway, right from age 10 up, and I can pass on my experiences. But I think the thing with the modern generation is sometimes they don't want to maybe work as hard as we would have done, and it's to try and emphasize that you aren't just going to get things easily, things aren't just going to be handed to you, and first and foremost you have to work hard to get anywhere in life. Yes, you might have some talent, but if you're not prepared to work hard and have a good work ethic, then you're not going to achieve anything.
So let's dive into your pro career here for a second, because as you just mentioned, the fact that this is something that you really got to work for and something that you really got to put the time and the energy in. You sign with the Crusaders Strikers in your home country right out of your opportunity here at Carson-Newman. How would you describe your first couple years there playing professionally at that point?
Yeah, well, it was still amateur actually at that point here at home, but it was great. We actually just out of finishing Carson-Newman qualified for the Champions League a couple of times. We won the league and qualified for the Champions League, and for us, kind of like, and when we went to the Algarve Cup, for us as a club to go to the Champions League and to see the standard of club players that there were and club teams that there were in Europe. The first year we went to it was the UEFA Cup then, which is now the Champions League. We played a Swedish team called Umeå, who had just won the tournament the previous year, and they beat us 15-0, which is not something that you want to celebrate, but it's something, it just shows the gulf that there was even in club football at that stage. And again, it opens your eyes and lets you see what standard of teams there are out there and players, and again, whet your appetite to maybe go and try something like that yourself, and to move on from playing in Northern Ireland. As much as I love playing here, it's obviously good to go and try yourself against other players in other countries.
Was the 15-0 loss the worst loss you ever suffered?
I think I can't really remember the emotions. I think it was just you couldn't quite believe that the team were actually that good. You couldn't really get near them. I've actually probably suffered worse losses because you were closer to teams that you maybe lost to, and there was more disappointment in that. But at that stage, you have to hold your hands up and just say they're just far too good, and there's nothing that you can do to prevent that. As much as it's awful for 15 goals to go in your net.
I guess sometimes it's better to get blown out than to lose in the in extra time there with 90 seconds left. A header that squeaks in past the goalkeeper, that's tougher to handle than a 15-0 loss because they were so much better than you at that point. But moving into the rest of your career at that point, continuing your playing days, you go to Iceland for 38 appearances for IBV. How did that opportunity come about?
A couple of the girls in the national team had gone the year before. Those girls had studied in the US at Southern Miss. They had got the opportunity, went to Iceland the year before, and I think we played Iceland with the national team in Iceland, and the coach of IBV had seen me play and had asked one of the girls in the national team that had played in Iceland, basically if she had, contact details for me. He got in touch, obviously said that he would like me to come and play there. And I went over in the January of that year of 2011 for kind of a 10-day period to see, how I found it. And, they wanted to see me obviously to train kind of on a semi-trial kind of basis as well. And then thankfully they decided that, they wanted to sign me. So I went to play there in April then of 2011. We actually went on pre-season trip to Spain. So I met the team in Spain for a pre-season camp, and then we flew back to Iceland from there.
What are those trials like as you try out for a team?
I think you just have to go and, not be afraid to express yourself and to try and be confident. It's obviously if you're going to Iceland, they're speaking a different language, and, you have to be a strong person to be able to go there and, to settle in with the team and to still, perform. And I think my years in Carson-Newman definitely helped me, to go to Iceland and to express myself.
From there, you get an opportunity to go to England and play for Everton. What was that experience like? I know it was I think 7 total caps that you earned for them, but how was that experience for you playing for a club like that?
Yeah, it was a fantastic opportunity at the time to go and play, to be one of it was me and one of the other girls off the national team got the opportunity. And at that stage, we were the only 2 from Northern Ireland playing in the Women's Super League. There's a couple of the girls playing in the leagues below, but not in the Super League, they're now playing in the Super League. But so it was fantastic, to get that opportunity to go and play for a club of Everton at that stage. Were one of the top women's sides as well. It just didn't really work out for me, more so off the pitch. I just didn't really enjoy it a lot. I spent a lot of the time on my own because at that stage it was, again, semi-professional, and a lot of the girls they obviously had their own families, and then they had, their jobs and stuff to go to as well. So, I just didn't really enjoy it off the pitch. I loved it on the pitch, but I didn't really enjoy it off the pitch. And thankfully then, through a contact that I made at Carson-Newman, one of the Scottish girls, Kirsty Murray, I was chatting to her, and that's how I got my move to Scotland, basically, from that.
Yeah, you get a great move to Glasgow City. 43 appearances, 10 goals, 2-time championship during that time. You make it to the Champions League final 16, and then a quarterfinalist as well. What was that opportunity like for you to not only go there, but maybe to have maybe your best overall campaigns, not only from an individual perspective, but from a team perspective there in Glasgow City?
Yeah, we had played with Crusaders. We had played against Glasgow City in the Champions League back in 2010. And I think the coach had seen me play there. And again, we lost, I think we lost 8-0 to Glasgow City, because at that stage they were still amateurs, but their setup was a lot more professional than we were in Northern Ireland. They were training 4 nights a week, as well as their day jobs. And at that stage, I think we were maybe training 1 day a week. But anyway, the coach had seen me play, and obviously it kind of stuck in his head a little bit. And then when I got the opportunity, he was looking for a centre-back. I think one of the players had been out with an ACL, and he needed somebody in the short term initially. So I got the opportunity to go there for the half of that season then in 2014, and kind of got straight into the team then because of that opportunity, with somebody out injured. And I really loved playing there. The coach, the sessions were fantastic. The girls were really nice off the pitch, but the sessions were so competitive on it. And again, there was a range of nationalities in the team. And I think that really helped, to push everybody on as well. And most of the players at that stage that I was playing with were all senior international players, either for the Republic of Ireland, for Northern Ireland, for Scotland, for Wales. There was a couple of different nationalities, as I say, and it really helped to push everybody on.
I want you to put one of the things that you just said into perspective for me and then for our listeners and viewers. a lot of people in the United States consider sports a full-time job. You become an athlete, that's all you do. You don't do anything else. You practice, you train. But you just mentioned the fact that for a lot of your time, at least through those first several years as you're playing amateur and semi-pro, you have other things that you're doing. And being on the training pitch is in essence what it would be like for a non-athlete in the United States where, hey, I'm going to the rec center and I'm going to go play basketball for a little bit, or I'm going to get a game going. How would you put that into perspective, what it was like for you to try to juggle the fact that people had other lives, people had other jobs, and they couldn't just show up at training at 8 a.m. and practice for 4 hours and lift and do the whole thing?
Yeah, when I went to Glasgow, as you just said, most of the girls worked. There was only 4 of us on the team at that time who were there as professional players, that were there solely to play. So for us, it kind of made the days a little bit long because you were waiting for training, at night time because it had to work around the people's jobs. But I suppose you got used to it after a while. I was used to training at night time anyway, from my time at home. Because we always had to train at night time or on the weekends to suit with work here. So it wasn't really out of the ordinary for me, but sitting around, waiting for training all day, the days did get a bit long sometimes, and you would have got a little bit bored.
Have things changed? Have there become more professional players that don't have to work a second opportunity on the teams that you've played for?
I know at Glasgow it has changed, and most of the girls are professional. At home here, we're still amateurs in our league. So we're all still, I have a full-time job that I'm holding down at the minute, plus training with my club and the national team sessions as well. Thankfully in England now, the top league is fully professional. And the league below is semi-professional, although some of the teams are fully professional. And, it's fantastic to see the strides that those teams, the leagues, I suppose, are making now. And even in Scotland, you have the likes of Rangers women and Celtic women that have just turned professional this year for the first time. So hopefully somewhere down the line in Northern Ireland, even if the league can become semi-professional, it would be fantastic to see that. But I think it's a few years off just yet.
In 2016, you became a women's football ambassador for the Irish Football Association. What does that opportunity do for you, and how has that grown in the last 4.5, 5 years?
Well, I don't work there any longer. I had that role for just short of 3 years, but it was a great opportunity, to work in football, as that was my job, and to go out and to spend time with some of the younger players. That's how I got involved, coaching in the pathways that I'm still a part of now. And it was great to be involved, even with some of the underage international squads as well. I spent time away with the under-17 team and the under-19 team at different spells, and it was great to be involved in that. And we got a little bit extra time to train ourselves then as well, during the day. So we didn't have to work our full working week. We got a little bit extra training time. So that was a great opportunity at that stage for me.
In September of 2018 against Slovakia, you become the first woman in Northern Ireland history to get 100 career caps. I think 113 now. Does that sound right? Is that accurate?
Yeah. Hopefully I'm counting, yeah.
Obviously, I think if, obviously trying to cross-reference records, I think that's third most all-time, including the men. So you're one of the very few people in Northern Ireland history to ever suit up 100 plus times to represent your country. What did that opportunity mean in September of 2018 to cross over the triple-digit plateau? I know you have, I guess, the honorary jersey behind you right now that has 100 with your name on top. What did that opportunity mean for you?
Yeah, it was fantastic. At the start of my career in 2004, it's not something that I ever dreamed, would be possible. Even probably at that stage to reach 50 caps, would have been something you maybe wouldn't even have envisaged. I think at that stage, the most cap players on the team, you were talking, maybe 20 caps or something like that. And even before my generations of players coming through now, I think the most cap player was a girl called Sarah Booth, who works actually for FIFA now. She had 27 caps, I think it was, and that was, that was the Northern Ireland caps record at that time. So, to go on to achieve 50 caps and then, to be the first female to achieve 100 caps was amazing, and yeah, as you say, the jersey's up there behind me now. And, it was fantastic. Obviously, we didn't win on that occasion, which was the only downside of it. But my family got to be there at the game, and it was fantastic to be the first person to do that.
I think one of the themes of our conversation has just been the overall growth. Well, when you started playing in 2004, and this might not be the exact ranking on the day that you started playing, but Northern Ireland was ranked 83rd nationally. Now they're up to number 49 in the world, and that's the highest that Northern Ireland has ever been. How much does it mean to you to continue to see that growth over the years and see Northern Ireland football continue to get better and better?
Yeah, it's incredible. A long-standing goal of us as a team or us as a nation was to break into the top 50 in the world. And thankfully, we managed to do that in December of 2020 after our European playoff success. But it's been 15 years in the making, and there's been lots of highs and lots of lows, throughout that period for myself and for the squad as well. And to finally see the squad break into the top 50 was fantastic for myself and for everybody that's been involved, past and present with the squad, whether that be on the field or off the field, and the team's getting so much recognition and visibility and support, I suppose, now as well, so it makes it all the more special, I suppose. The only disappointing thing was for our final games, we weren't able to have any spectators or any fans because of COVID regulations at that time. So that was the only downside of it. But thankfully, the games were shown on national TV. So, shown online. So everybody was able to watch the games there.
113 caps for you. This is, I guess, a really broad question. You can take it however you want to go, whatever direction you'd like to go in this. What are some of your most memorable moments suiting up for the home country over the last 15 plus years?
Obviously, my 100th cap was one of the most special. Reaching the European playoff final there just back in the 1st of December was incredible, and probably the top moment of my international career. And back in 2013, I think at that stage we were ranked, I think we were 32 or something in Europe, and we beat Norway, who were ranked 2nd in Europe at the time, and that was incredible at that stage. To even contemplate beating a team like Norway, never mind actually doing it, and to beat them convincingly with a 3-1 win. Those are probably the 3 highlights of my international career, but there's been many other highs and lows throughout the last 16 years now, but I would say those are the 3 kind of standout moments that come to the forefront of my mind whenever you ask that question.
Obviously, like you mentioned, you get the opportunity for 16 years to play for your home country. You basically get to see an entire generation through that entire time. Girls that were born around the time that you were starting your high school, your collegiate career. Those girls are now becoming opportunity for them to go play college, and several of those have landed here in Jeff City, and some really, really high-quality players. Julianne Harity, Lauren Wade, Jackie Burns, to name a few here over the last 5 or 6 years or so. What does it mean to you to see players from your home country, in essence, follow in your footsteps, because they get the opportunity not only to play for the home country, but to come to your college, succeed at your college? 2 of those players were key parts of a team that made it to a national title match, and then get opportunities to play professionally as well.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see the opportunities, that the younger generation, that are getting now, and, the likes of Jackie and Lauren, as you mentioned, it was great to see them be so successful at Carson-Newman, and I sat and watched the championship game and was gutted for them whenever, they didn't get the win in the final, but it was fantastic to see the progress that they had made, and, as you say, following in my footsteps. And actually the coach at the time when they went was Richard Moody, who had played in the men's team whenever I was there at Carson-Newman. I think he probably was part of those squads that you were talking about earlier, so it was kind of good to see everything go full circle, and to see Richard, being the coach of the team, and those girls being integral parts of the team as well. And there's been a couple of others, as you mentioned, have gone to Carson-Newman too. And as I said at the start of the conversation, I would recommend it to anybody, to go to Carson-Newman.
When you talk about the level of support that women's soccer and women's sports in general have really gained here over the last few years, what does it mean to you to get the opportunity to see this growth of women's football in general, to see the continued growth, to see the popularity continue to grow, to see the media start to pay more attention and fans to start pay more attention? For you, as you start to think about the next steps in your life, to know that the sport that you're so passionate about is in good hands for the future, that opportunities are just going to continue to rise for other girls.
Yeah, I think the game's only going to go from strength to strength. As you said, the strides that have been made have been fantastic, probably more so in the last 5 years. Even the professionalism that's happened within, as I said, England, and now it's great to see some of the US players coming to play over here in England as well. And I was fortunate to go to the Women's World Cup final when the US obviously beat the Netherlands, and to see a crowd of, I think it was about 55,000 there. All there, with their US shirts or their Dutch shirts, or obviously there was a few neutral fans like ourselves, and to see the hype that created. And since the Women's World Cup, I've spoken to some men here in Northern Ireland who probably would have been of the opinion before that as women's football, and that it's not very good, and they can't really play, but they've watched the Women's World Cup, and it's great to see that the mindset of some of them change, and they can see now that the product that's being produced is worth watching, and hopefully that helps to inspire even more young girls to take up the game and continue to grow.
I don't want to make this too much about what your overall future is going to be, or try to pinpoint down when potentially you're starting to think about something else. But what do you want to achieve throughout the rest of your playing days, be it however long you have, be it 3 years, 5 years, longer, shorter, however long you have? What is still left for you to achieve as a player?
Well, in the short term, I want to obviously... Well, fingers crossed that the games go ahead in April. We have a European Championship playoff to play, a double header, a home and away game to play in April. So obviously I want to make sure I'm involved and part of that squad, and to hopefully be successful and to qualify for the European Championships in 2022, which for Northern Ireland, if we were able to do that, would be incredible. And then I probably don't have that long left to play, but basically to try and to reach as many caps as I can for Northern Ireland, and to just to maximise, obviously get the most out of my career that I can. It would be great for my club team to get back to winning trophies. We used to be one of the top teams here, and over the last probably 5 or so years, it's been kind of a transition, to develop some of the younger players. And the season that we've just finished there was probably one of our best seasons in the last 3 or 4 years. So hopefully we can build on that and maybe get back to winning some silverware before I hang up my boots.
When COVID hit last year, obviously every country's been a little bit different, and a lot of the people that are listening to this probably have that scope of what it's been like in their specific country, wherever they may be listening or watching to this. What was the initial lockdown like for you when COVID started? Yeah,
we had just got back from a trip with the national team to Spain. We had played 3 games in Spain, and had just you're hearing rumours about COVID at that time, and there were so many uncertainties at that stage. Nobody really knew what was happening. And not long after we got back then from Spain, obviously the initial lockdown happened, I think, kind of everywhere in the world at that stage. And I I went to working from home for the best part of, I think, nearly 4 months, up until kind of the end of July. So I work in the university here, thankfully, in the sports department, and I was able to borrow a rowing machine and some gym, some weights from there, which I actually still have in the garage now, which is coming in handy because we're back in lockdown again. But so I was able to use that, obviously, to train and to mix up my training a little bit. So I wasn't obviously having to run on the roads every day. And it was great to have that release, as well as, obviously, I was having to work from home during the whole period. So I didn't really get a lot of time off as such, and I didn't get a lot of time to sit about and to be bored either, because I was working during the day, and then by the time I finished work, then I did my training, and then I ate my dinner, and it was about 8 o'clock at night by that stage. And thankfully, over the summer, we actually had some pretty good weather for our standards. Northern Ireland's well known for the amount of rain that we would get, but thankfully, kind of through May and June, it was actually quite warm and sunny, and it made it a lot easier, obviously, to get through lockdown.
I'll get you out of here on this. You've been very gracious with your time here today. Your story, I think, is very motivational for a lot of people, because you truly followed your passion. You did not fall into a pattern of just trying to get a big corporate job or something that is going to make you a ton of money at the outset. You're looking at something that is very passion driven. You come to the United States as a very shy player. When you first come over here, you see through 3.5 years through a tough injury. You play for your home country. You play for various clubs internationally. What would your motivating speech be to fellow athletes, to fellow people that perhaps are at a crossroads in their careers, trying to decide what is the next best step and trying to follow their passion versus trying to do something that maybe from an outsider's perspective might be the better move?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because at the time I remember my parents, well, my mum especially, kind of thinking, you're going to finish with a degree from the US, and maybe you should go and get a bigger kind of more well-paid job, as you've mentioned. And I was adamant at the time that obviously I loved my first semester at Carson-Newman, and I wanted to stay and to finish it out there, and kind of see what would be after that. I would encourage anybody to follow their passion, as you say, and if it's something that you actually, you really want to do, then don't let anybody get in your way, basically, and put your mind to that.
Julie, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Best of luck. Hopefully you can get that match in here in a couple months.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Michael. She's
legendary Carson-Newman women's soccer player, Julie Nelson, the most capped player in Northern Ireland history, joining us here on episode 11 of Mossy Creek Conversation. Thanks for tuning in.